Hi, I'm Effie, and this is What Effie Reads. Today's video is going to be me vlogging my experience with reading Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. This is a book that I'm expecting to have really mixed feelings about. So far, I've read the Darker Shade of Magic series, the first of the Shades of Magic graphic novels, and I've read book 1 and 2 of the Cassidy Blake series, which was City of Ghosts and Tunnel of Bones. And I am excited to read Bridge of Souls, but I have a very specific issue, and I'm sure it's an issue others share with this series. Before I get into the meat of this video, I need to establish that I have nothing against Victoria Schwab. I have enjoyed her writing so far, and this is not a critique of her books, even if I don't like a specific aspect of them. Okay, this is going to be the only time that I speak about Harry Potter on my channel. So this video, there's likely to be a lot of Harry Potter chat and a lot of how much I hate Harry Potter. Okay. So, I am 29 years old, which means that I was pretty much exactly the right age when the Harry Potter series was coming out. If I remember rightly, as the films were coming out, I was in the same school year as the films. So when they were in their first year at Hogwarts, I was in my first year of secondary school, and obviously being British, my school years follow the same format as them. So that kind of gives you an idea of the age group I was in. I have vivid memories of a particular point in the books being spoilt for me. I think it was book 5, but I don't know. There's a major character death that happens, and I remember a girl. I remember her name, and I remember the moment that she decided to shout out to the whole class that this particular event had happened in the books. And obviously they'd just been released, so for a lot of us, we hadn't got to that point. So these were books that I kind of enjoyed, at least initially, but I found myself aging out of the books as they were being published. So I finished the series, and then I just didn't really think about it again. I didn't like the writing of the Harry Potter series, so there's not the same nostalgia for me. And then obviously, the more and more years since the books have been released, the author has revealed herself to be incredibly problematic. So I just distance myself, and I have no interest in speaking about this series on my channel or even referring to it vaguely. However, I think it's relevant when looking at the Cassidy Blake series. So as I'm filming this, I have not read any of Bridge of Souls yet. However, I have heard that the specific issues I had with the first 2 books continue into this 3rd book. And this specific issue, if you've not guessed by now, is that these books are really, really heavy on Harry Potter references, which makes it a very difficult reading experience for me because the plot of the story is really good. And then you have these heavy Harry Potter references really frequently. And one, it takes you out of the action. Two, do middle grade readers even read Harry Potter now? I honestly don't know, because it's not something I really pay attention to, but I struggle to believe that Harry Potter is popular with that age group. So it's somewhat dated, and I find it hard to suspend my disbelief. And then 3, I just hate it. Sorry, I'm probably repeating myself. It makes me so frustrated because these books are otherwise really good books. So, welcome aboard for what is sure to be a journey as I read these books. So I've just finished the first chapter of Bridge of Souls, and wow, I'm instantly reminded of just how much I love this series and how Schwab's writing just sucks you straight in, and you feel like you're standing in the middle of New Orleans. And then, like, partially because it's Schwab and partially because it's middle grade, the action's already starting, and I'm desperate to see where it goes next. In that moment you're falling. Page 16. That's how far into the book I got before I got a bloody Harry Potter reference. I'm reading the Crate edition, so it's I believe it's the US Standard Edition with like different cover and it's signed. But yeah, 16 pages. That's all it took for them to bring up Harry Potter. That is frustratingly early in the book. And I think what frustrates me more is it's almost like Schwab doesn't have confidence in her writing. Like, it's so atmospheric that I don't need her to tell me it's like something in another book. Right. So obviously this video is going to be full of spoilers. So if you haven't read Bridge of Souls, like, probably come back after you've read it unless you're not bothered about being spoiled. But the reference on page 16 is talking about how at the end of Tunnel of Bones, when Cassidy meets who is the big bad of this book, and it's this creepy skeleton man, and she faints. She's talking about what it felt like for her, and it was like someone was like pulling her soul out, I think she said. She said, I was in a nice warm room until they threw the windows open, and then everything went cold. In that moment, I had never felt so sick, so scared, so alone. So that tells me everything I need to know. That is so atmospheric and detailed. And then I turn over the page and you've got Jacob, who has never read Harry Potter because obviously he's a ghost, and up until now he hasn't been able to manipulate things in the world. So all of his Harry Potter references are like half references, and he's like, oh, like a Dementor. And Cassie's like, Dementor. I'm just like, I get it, but also, you don't need to tell me it's like a Dementor. Your writing's good enough already. So frustrating. I don't even have any B-roll to go between this clip because literally on page 17, there's another Harry Potter reference talking about how someone's a Gryffindor and someone's a Ravenclaw. And I'm like, this whole like splitting people into personality types is pretty tired as it is, but splitting them into personality types based on a series written by a transphobe, it's just grating. I hate how this book makes me love it and then I hate it. I'm hoping I can get back to loving it soon. I'm back to loving it again. I can imagine this being very much a I love it, I'm angry, I love it, I'm angry kind of video. But it's very, very, very atmospheric. It's very eerie. You can feel the tension building as we're learning all these ghost stories. And I love the way that all of the ghost stories, apart from the big bad of the books, are genuine ghost stories of these cities. And I think that adds to it, knowing that there is that element of truth to these books. I'm very excited about some of the stuff that we're going to see, because there's been a list of the locations and the only one I recognise is La Laurie Mansion, which I'm familiar with because of American Horror Story, and I'm very interested to see a bit more of the history and to see it through the lens of this book. It breeds like disease. The feeling is I've completed part 1 of Bridge of Souls now, and overall I'm really enjoying it. It's got that spooky, creepy factor that I love about it, and the tension slowly ramping up, but then you'll have shocking moments and then it'll go back to slowly ramping up. And as we're now at the end of part 1, I'm thinking that things are going to start going very badly wrong for Cassidy. And I'm kind of excited. I don't know, even though Cassidy's fictional, it feels wrong to want things to go badly for her. About the 100-page mark, and I'm finding that some of the items in the Owlcrate Bridge of Souls box is making a lot more sense. Like, obviously the box was going to be Bridge of Souls, but I thought it was more generally the Cassidy Blake series. But things like the blanket, which was a Two of Swords tarot card blanket, right, I've now got to the point of the story where Cassidy meets a person doing tarot readings and pulls the Two of Swords card. And it's done in a really cool way as well. Like, it's not really discrediting tarot, but it's just explaining how it's a mirror. And I think that's a lovely way of looking at mystical things as well, saying it's okay to use them, turn to them, but sometimes they're just asking you things that you should be thinking about already. I don't know. I'm probably going to edit this bit out. I am wondering if this book is going to end with us losing Jacob. I'm hoping not, because he's a lovely character. And I also would be surprised if that's the case, because there is this tension building up of Jacob getting stronger and stronger and potentially becoming like a big bad. And I also know this isn't necessarily the end. It's like the end for now. So it's like a 3-book arc, but we might see more of Cassidy Blake in the future. It just feels like it would be too predictable and too obvious for Jacob to leave with the end of this series. But then again, it's a 3-book arc, and my experience with Schwab's writing is that she has no qualms about hitting you with those gut punches. I'm also getting a bit peckish now, so I might have to switch to the audiobook whilst I have some food. But we'll see, because I do really enjoy reading in this format, but I also love audiobooks.
It craves, it breeds like disease. The feeling is toxic.
Just popping in to say, this book gives me the creeps, and I love it. I love that it's giving me chills down my spine, and it's brilliant. I love when books give me the chills.
Feel love, look back on your life. You need to survive.
So, I've gotten to another Harry Potter reference. It was on page 141. So, that's not terrible. 3 Harry Potter references is still 3 too many. And I know for a fact there's one that multiple people have said was way too long. So there's at least 4 in a book that's only 300 pages long. But aside from that, I'm still really, really enjoying it. Lara's turned up, which adds a whole new dynamic, and the Society of the Black Cat seems really intriguing. The point of the story that I'm at the moment, they've just found the headquarters of the Society of the Black Cat, and they've met Philippa, and now they've gone through to the room where Jacob can't join them. And I'm still really, really enjoying it. It's still quite creepy. Overall, an enjoyable book, apart from 3 too many Harry Potter references. Switched to the other end of the sofa, hence why I'm the other way around. Duh. I've now got to the end of part 3, and I am pretty much 200 pages in. Yeah, part 4 starts on page 201. I just kind of wanted to check in because there was a really cool moment where Cassidy's kind of scared because she's about to face the emissary of death. Well, not about to. She knows it's coming soon and she expects to face the emissary very soon. She's looking in a mirror like she would for a spirit, but also realising that it's a good way of reflecting on who she is. And she goes, "My name is Cassidy Blake. I'm 12 years old. Last year, I stole from death. I lived when I should have died. I stayed when I should have gone. I survived once, and I'll survive again. My name is Cassidy Blake, and I will not be dragged into the dark. I just think that's so beautifully poetic, and that's why I love Schwab's writing. And why I'm so mad that she insists on putting Harry Potter references in this series. So at this point, 200 pages in, there's been 4 Harry Potter references. So you're averaging 1 every 50 pages. And I still haven't got to this like overly long one that I've heard about. So there's at least 1 more, so 5 in the course of a 300-page book. And I'm generally not a fan of pop culture references in books anyway. But it's not even like there's any other pop culture references. It's literally just Harry Potter. And I don't get it. It doesn't add anything to the story. And I feel so bad feeling this mad about this specific thing. Because otherwise, this series is really good. But it's a massive hurdle for me. And I don't know if this is a case of this book has been written for some time and there was no way to edit it out. But the way I read it is that every one of these references is adding literally 0 to the plot. So they could have been removed very late into the editing stages. So it feels like a conscious choice. But I don't know. Maybe one of these will add something, but I feel so passionate about this that I can't imagine it happening. I don't know. The point of this update was to say I'm still loving it and it's beautifully poetic. So I'm sorry I went off on a tangent. We're at the point of the story where they're at the Lalaurie mansion and I've decided I'm going to slow down the time-lapse speed for this because I think this is going to be a really creepy, atmospheric moment in the story. And again, Schwab's got beautiful prose. She says, I remember Aidan's story from the first night about the call coming from inside the house, even though no one else was home. And I know it was the kind of ghost story you tell instead of the true horror, the kind you tell about places after they're haunted instead of the ones that explain how they got haunted in the first place. And it makes me so excited, but that's also the wrong word because the Lalaurie mansion has got a horrific history and it truly is one of the darkest mirrors of humanity. So I think maybe I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see it described through a middle grade lens, and especially with the way that Schwab writes. If I'm remembering correctly, she said that this was the one location that really spooked her, whether it was visiting it or just learning all the stories. But this may be my favourite part of the book. I don't know. I haven't even read it yet, but I'm excited.
Shadow realm burning down, I'll light up the way. The star to the end.
I've made it to part 5, which appears to be the final part of this book, and it's called The Bridge of Souls, and all of the action seems to be leading towards this final showdown. And I really don't know how it's going to turn out, because it's been built up that Cassidy's going to have to choose between Lara and Jacob, both of whom feel like fairly integral characters, and knowing that this isn't the end of the series makes me think we're not going to lose either of them. But she's all on her own now, and it feels like she is going to be forced to make a choice, and I honestly can't see a way out of this for her, which is a great way to go into the last bit of a book. There's about 50 pages left, and apart from the 5 Harry Potter references, I'm enjoying it. Now finished Bridge of Souls, and I would say that it was never going to be a 5-star for me because of the Harry Potter references, of which there are a total of 6. But aside from that, it was a really, really enjoyable book, and it ended in such a way that very much left it open for future adventures, but also felt like it closed the door quite nicely for now. I do still think that in the future we're going to see Jacob maybe not becoming a big bad, but becoming some kind of obstacle. And I think that might be the way that the series eventually wraps up. But I really appreciate the kind of feeling of acceptance of, if this is it, it's it. And the way that it so openly deals with death. Like, obviously, Cassidy is dealing with ghosts through this whole series. But there's a moment where they're worried about other emissaries of death following them. And Lara's basically saying, well, whether you're an in-betweener or not, you're always running from death, and eventually death will catch up with you. And I love that casual acceptance that is just perfect for a middle grade where you kind of discussing these topics with children who probably are starting to experience death. So I really, really enjoyed it, apart from the Harry Potter references. I just want to briefly touch on how tactful and respectful Schwab's approach to discussing the Lalaurie mansion was. I think it was incredibly appropriate to include it within a ghost story that takes place in New Orleans, and the way that she gives the reader just enough information to respect these people and say that these are things that happen, and by talking about we remember them, we respect them. But then she then gathers the reader up with Cassidy and Lara and kind of shepherds them all out and says, okay, let's now take a step back. This is something that we're not going to glorify. We're not going to go into too much detail. And it just felt so well done. For anyone that's interested about what the Harry Potter references are, as I've said throughout this video, they did not add anything to the story. And I don't know, they felt less gratuitous, overdone than they had in the previous books. But there was still 6 of them. The first one was when Cassidy was talking about the emissary of death, and she was saying Jacob likened him to a dementor. At the time I said, Schwab's prose is so good, we don't need this simile, and definitely don't. So that was the first reference. The second one came on the very next page, and it was something to do with houses. I don't know. It felt, again, very needless. The third one was quite a bit after that. I guess she'd used up her 1 per 50 and had to leave a bit of a break. And it was comparing a shop to being like Diagon Alley. Again, it didn't feel necessary. The prose stood in its own right without comparing it to another location. The fourth reference, I believe, was another Hogwarts house reference. So again, it's breaking people down into personality types. So again, didn't feel necessary. Like, you could have easily changed the words for brave and smart. I don't know what the houses are meant to represent, but you could change the Harry Potter reference for an adjective that describes a person, and in fact that would strengthen the writing, I think. Whereas the other references to specific aspects of Harry Potter don't add anything. I think including house things takes away from the writing because you're being less descriptive, you're being somewhat reductive. So that was that one. Then there was a moment where Cassidy's given a token to help ground her and remember what is real and what's not. And it's some very vague, obscure reference to a remembrall and how it was meant to remember things, but you remembered you'd forgotten something, but not what you'd forgotten. And again, it just didn't add anything to the story. But I think what made it so much worse was it didn't reflect anything that came. Like, Cassidy remembered fine by having this token. This token served its purpose, so it wasn't in any way like this anecdote that she'd given. And then the final reference was describing someone as looking like Luna Lovegood. And again, it didn't add anything to the story. You could have very easily just taken out that sentence and it would have still served as a description. But I don't know. I have so much love for Schwab's writing, and it hurts me that these things are included and that I have to critique it, but it is worthy of critique, especially for a book that is published in 2021. These are things that shouldn't be occurring in literature anymore. I think that's all I've got to say on this book. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see me do more of these single book or single series vlogs. Let me know if you've read Bridge of Souls, which I presume if you've gotten this far you have. Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially on the use of pop culture references. And until next time, bye!